So, Marlene,
Good morning.
good morning. We are early morning here. Um, the chapter on the forest walk in your book, A Dance with Life, feels like it was a quite a turning point
Mm,
for you in your life.
mm. Yeah, bearing in mind that I came along a journey, and the last chapter in the book, as you say, there's a turning point where things started to kind of slot into place for me. And I'll just show you the images. Well, I'll let you know the images, but I'll just show them to you quickly. Um, where we talk about Zen leaf. Zen leaves was one of them. And I started to realize, like, this was me, this actual image was taken at a Buddhist retreat center in Ikopo in the Midlands in South Africa. And when we look at this, image, you can feel, Tracy Dan, you can feel I don't know, it's just, to me, it's so Zen. Someone once said that you can't explain stillness to a person that's never been still. You can't explain enlightenment to someone that's never been awakened. You can't explain any of our lives, really, or our situations to someone, unless you've been through it.
Yeah.
So this, to a lot of people, might look just like an image of some leaves, but to those that have gone deeper within themselves, that have really touched a place of this core stillness and this awe and wonder and the beauty of life, this image will resonate. It will actually ignite something inside of you. It'll ignite you. It'll trigger you to want to stop. In other words, there's something about this image. There's something about this image that makes you observe. It's more than just an image.
Yeah.
It holds an enormous amount of energy. And that's so wonderful about the book, A Dance with Life. You can see all my notes I've made already. Because there's beautiful hidden messages in here.
Yeah.
And Tracy Jane, that's one thing that we don't understand. And I've always taught my students that, is that when we're walking, things are automatically affecting us around us all the time. You see, we have become so dense and so shut down that we don't understand. I hope the monkeys on the roof aren't making a noise. Can you hear the
I
monkeys?
can't hear them now.
My goodness, the monkeys running on the roof here. So, and it's also appropriate that they are here at this time while we're talking. So as
Yeah.
human beings, we have to remember who we are. We're so used to being in a system that shut us down.
Yeah.
And anyone that opens up and is a little bit extraordinary or out there, we consider weird.
Yeah.
So, and in the beginning, it was a struggle for me in the photography world because I didn't fit into being a photographer, into the photography normal f-stops and shutter speeds and know how everything works. But I just had this beautiful connection to nature. And I saw things like, it was like, oh my God, nobody else sees these things.
Yeah.
So I'd reached a point where at this Buddhist retreat, it was like, if I think of Thich Nhat Hanh and all the beautiful Buddhists that were practicing meditation, practicing stillness, even the leaves were starting to show, even their leaves. And as I went deeper into the forest, this particular little image, and it's not about, oh, this is a beautiful photograph, although I feel like it really is an amazing image. These leaves are only that forest. What was this one called? The
Forest dance.
forest dance. This was only this size, so it was like 1.5 centimeters.
Yeah.
And I hadn't done much, not really a macro photographer or micro photographer, but I was deep in the forest walking down, and this little 1.5 centimeter leaf caught my attention. It wasn't about the leaf, it was about the light. So this is what happens to us when we become incredibly still. We become so still that this is the oneness that we're all talking about. But it's like there's no mind. There's no mind. And that's what was happening to me. There was no mind. And a 1.5 centimeter little leaf, and the way the light was on it, became my universe, became my world. It just opened up and it became, oh my God. And I sat there buried in forest, buried into the forest leaves, into the ground, into the dirt, and put my camera as close as I could to my lens. I put a wide angle lens. I was photographing and moving with the light. And I had no clue what the f-stop or shutter speed or what any of that was. It was more about the light coming through and how the whole forest was actually dancing. And at the same time, this was happening to me because I was in this incredible Buddhist retreat place, which I write about in my book.
Yeah.
A Dance with Life. I can't remember the page, Tracy Jane. Can you remember? Starts on 99, page 99. Just
Very
before
good.
just the turning point that's going to happen. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
So, you know, and there was a whole series of them, and people might just look. You see, when you're just looking and you're not seeing, one just goes, oh, it's pretty leaves. This was only a centimeter. That's how big this leaf was.
Wow.
But it was for me, it didn't matter. I never photographed for other people. For me, it was the joy, the beauty, the magnificence of this little shoot, because it wasn't already a full-grown shoot, a full-grown leaf. It was just shooting. So as you can see what was happening to me, because this is a turning point in the book, and it's also it's the chapter that leads us on to our next book. So this is new life. What was going on inside of me was starting to reflect. I had let go of all the stuff in all those years that had been bogging me down, and I had let go of this. And life, nature. You see, this is the whole thing: is remembering who we are. We are nature. We are nature. We are not separate from nature. So this, I don't know if there's anything you want to ask or add, or anything we want to talk about around this is any more. I mean, look at this incredible magnificence in one leaf. And you think of how many billions of leaves we walk past each day. And this leaf is actually, it's like it resembles each of us. You are this leaf. I am this leaf. Anyone who's listening to us is this leaf. You know, we're at a turning point in our lives. We're at this incredible turning point where there's a lovely saying, the only way out is in.
Yeah.
And nature shows us that. If we look at that one, if we look at that, look how tiny these are. So I often think that people who love nature, you know, yes, I've been taking photographs for the past 40 years, but what is a photographer really? It's not, it's just a label. You know, I love capturing life and nature and the creativity, because that's what we're looking for. We're looking for the creativity. And because when we are creative, we are divinely connected to our true nature. And that's all I've been my whole life, just a really creative being that probably has struggled through the school system, struggled through life. I've struggled through life. But the beautiful thing about getting a bit older is that, you're more accepting of yourself. You're more, I don't know, it's starting to fall into place. Although I see a lot of older people still struggling. And, I think a dance with life is like it's like a maybe a rite of passage for everyone, that they go through and read it, and it actually allows them in their own lives to allows people to, because so many have written and they've said they can't put the book down.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that you say?
No, I think for me, Marlene, the Forest Walk chapter, and you expressing how this period of time was a change for you. You know, you were changing. You'd had these things have gone on, and your sister had died,
Yeah.
And you took yourself away. You took yourself away to this retreat. And you allowed yourself to be helped by others, which felt different for you, felt, unusual for you. But you allowed that to happen. But then by doing that, you then started seeing these different things in nature and capturing them in a different way. So it feels like, it's almost like, where do we start? Do you start by taking the photograph, or do you start by it's almost,
Tracy Jane,
this cycle, this,
it's
one thing affects the other.
Yeah, it's a really important question. Where do we start? I think that no one wants to hear that, because this has been a journey. It's been a whole lifelong journey. It starts with stillness. If we have a look at this cover, we have a look at this grass.
Yeah.
Yeah. How still that is in the desert. If you have a look at how still nature is. So I'd come to a point in my life where I realized the importance of stillness. And no matter what, because what happens to us is we get sucked into life. We get sucked into everything. And I remember my beautiful mum passing. And I noticed something about her. All she wanted was stillness. It was almost a way of, and if we think of the teachings, the retreat I went to was about stillness.
Yeah.
So when we still everything down, because we're not trained like that, we're trained in the opposite direction. We're constantly on these things. We're constantly being bombarded with media. And we've lost that. And this is this beautiful journey to take people on a dance with life, to reach a point where they realize that this is the ultimate, is to be still. Because from stillness, we remember who we are. It's very difficult. Do you know how difficult it is for the human race to quieten their minds?
Very.
Very, very difficult. Teaching photography was the easy part for me. It was probably the easiest thing in the world, was to teach photography, because people think photography is in a camera. If you know this f-stop, I want to know how to be a photographer. I want to know my camera. I've never taught that. Work with the whole person, because the artist is in the being. The artist is in the being. It's not in the paintbrush. And it's the same for me, to bring that to the world, to understand that through photography, through the camera, through the lens, through your phone, through this lens. I mean, we were given two lenses.
Yeah.
And I had a beautiful saying, this is an extension of who we are inside. So it's to find that stillness.
Thank you.